Donald Trump is not going to win the election. But let me explain why it feels like he might. The Trump movement is a confidence trick. Everything about him is fake, from his hair, his skin color, his height, to his popularity as a presidential candidate, and the fake polls that he has invested in to lay the groundwork for his expected coup. Since Donald Trump started as a Manhattan realtor, he has falsely inflated his success by branding his buildings in his own name, licensing his name to other brands, and lying about his wealth and scale of his assets. Nothing changed when he ran for president in 2016, except he had the weight of a successful reality TV show behind him where he played the role of a successful businessman. But nothing could have been further from the truth. Trump is a great marketeer and propagandist, but that's where it ends. And as with most consumers, some people buy into the brand and they get fleeced, and others see it for what it really is and are spared. Trump took his formula into politics, an arena that was tied into historical protocols before he broke the mold. Lying and projecting, speaking explicitly, nicknames, abusive language, xenophobic tropes, all that stuff that he does seemed out of place at first in US politics, but we soon got used to it as the media normalized his behavior thanks to the huge ratings that came with covering him. And so here we are, 3 days out from the election, and Trump is still lying his way to the presidency, or certainly the Republican ticket. Trump also discovered that there weren't many legal guardrails in place to prevent his lying, his abuse, or propaganda. The First Amendment is a gift to Trump, not to mention his immunity ruling from the MAGA Republican Supreme Court. To get away with overturning an election or stealing classified documents or colluding with America's foes makes Trump feel untouchable and invincible, and to some extent he is. But there's one guardrail that Trump never bargained for, and that is your vote. A baked-in democratic right that Trump can't meddle with if you vote him out. And he has to be voted out by such a large margin that there's no question about how much of America rejected his brand, his playbook, and his dishonesty. That's the power of we the people. And that's where these confusing polls come in. Trump also discovered that a hefty investment in polling is a great way to skew his diminishing popularity. Remember, Trump has become less and less popular since he was helped to win the presidency by Russian meddling in 2016. Trump's failure in leadership has only compounded the mass exodus of support, and so his natural reaction was to fake his popularity as he fakes everything else. It started on day one of his presidency when he faked his crowd size at his inauguration, getting Sean Spicer to claim it was the largest attendance in history, period. From that day onwards, the lies never stopped. Trump knows that his popularity has been waning, hence why his violent rhetoric has only increased in recent weeks. His vile language, his xenophobia, his fascism.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
Recent polling in the 7 key swing states reveals an incredibly close presidential race, with 39% of the last 321 polls, specifically 124 of them, showing a margin of just 1 percentage point or less. Now, this narrow margin isn't just remarkable, it may also be unlikely. In a truly deadlocked election, the natural variation in polling would typically lead to a wider range of results. The consistently close results in these state polls and their averages might hint at intentional adjustments being made by pollsters to achieve such precision. Poll results are shaped by both voter opinions, but also pollster decisions. Adjustments made to match expected voter demographics can shift a poll's outcome by as much as 8 points. Even with sensible, well-informed decisions on weighting, pollsters are exploring new techniques and methods to counteract declining response rates and address issues from the 2016 and 2020 election cycles. Now, the striking similarity in reported poll margins across 7 swing states raises an intriguing and potentially concerning possibility that some pollsters may be making similar adjustments that create the appearance of uniformity, potentially projecting a false sense of certainty. There's even a chance that some pollsters may be looking at others' results to guide their own, a phenomenon known as herding. This clustering effect could distort public expectations, making it seem as though the race is closer than it might actually be. And whilst we could indeed be headed for a tight election, there is also a significant possibility that one candidate could secure a comfortable victory, sweeping all the swing states, despite the close numbers currently being reported. One factor behind this uniformity could be that pollsters, wary of releasing an outlier result, sometimes adjust unusual outcomes by tweaking weighting schemes to align more closely with the results of other polls. This approach is tempting for risk-averse pollsters who fear reputational or financial backlash for producing an outlier, especially since pollsters are often evaluated based on accuracy. A pollster who receives a surprising 5-point margin in a race believed to be tied might opt to adjust it to match the prevailing close margin narrative rather than risk standing out. More likely is that some of the strategies that pollsters are employing to tackle the polling challenges from the last election, like waiting for partisanship or previous voting patterns, are unintentionally flattening the differences between polls, reducing natural variation. Now, these choices, while subtle, can have significant impacts, suggesting that the similar margins we're seeing could be a result of pollster methodology rather than an exceptionally divided electorate. If these assumptions prove incorrect, a reality we won't fully understand until after Election Day, then the risk of a significant polling error could grow as the variation in poll results shrinks. The question is whether the tight margins reflect voter sentiment or pollster decisions. Instead, it raises the possibility that the actual results on Election Day could diverge significantly from the prevailing narrative of a deadlock. And this just confirms my prediction that the polling is a red herring. If you think that voting for an insurrectionist is going to bring decency back to the country, think again. If you think a known liar, fraud, embezzler will make America great again, think again. If you think that someone who takes ownership of the reversal of a woman's right to choose is going to poll well with women, think again. Women make up more than half of the electorate, and I don't see that reflected in these polls. Donald Trump represents everything that is wrong with America, and I, for one, don't underestimate the instincts of Americans. You know he's a bad person, possibly one of the worst Americans who ever lived. You know he's a convicted felon and an adjudicated rapist. We don't intentionally put people like him in the White House. And remember, Trump hasn't won anything since 2016. If you vote for the Democrats, Trump's dangerous, hate-filled rhetoric will be confined to history for the last time. Vice President Kamala Harris leads a team of kind, thoughtful, intelligent, diverse, balanced, and experienced Americans whose intention is to put America back where it belongs on the world stage, to put Donald Trump behind us. And Democrats are for all Americans, no matter your race, religion, background, or ability. Everybody is welcome, even Republicans and reformed Trumpers. That's the difference between the parties. And that's why everyone should vote for normality and decency on November 5th.
And today, I see the promise of America in everyone who is here, in all of you, in all of us. We are the promise of America. We are the promise of America. It's the fathers and mothers and grandparents who work hard every day for their children's future, in the women who refuse to accept a future without reproductive freedom, and the men who support them. It's in the Republicans who never voted for a Democrat before, but put the Constitution of the United States above party. I see the promise of America in all the young leaders that I see right now who are voting for the very first time. Raise your hand. You know, the future of our country is so bright. We just have to see it. It's so bright. So listen, we got 4 days to get this thing done. 4 days. No one can sit on the sidelines. So let's spend the next 4 days so that when we look back on these days, we have no regrets about what we could have done. Let's know we did everything we could do. So let's knock on doors, let's text, let's call, let's reach out to family and friends and classmates and neighbors and coworkers. And here's a request that I have in that process. And while we are doing all of that, let's please be intentional about building community. There is strength and power in that will be long-lasting. And finally, I'll say, just remember, and let's remind everybody we know, your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power. That's your power. In a democracy, that is a power that is yours. Don't let anyone take it from you. Don't let anyone take it from you.
I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.